right, welcome to the fourth video, third review of the evening. Like I said, I always hate it when we have an impressions video for the purposes of, the flow of the beginning spiel. But sometimes it happens. And there's just no way to make it anything but awkward. But such is life. Anyway, up this time is ORCS. ORCS is a action 2D platformer, old school, inspirated by classic like Castlevania and Ghosts and Goblins. That is the exact tagline that is on the Steam page. So, direct any and all complaints about spelling to Pixel versus Pixel.
Aren't these guys? Were these the devs who are non-native English?
Clearly, one of those devs.
Yeah.
And for the purposes of our show, these are the creators of Kalanor, which is a much more recent title. This is actually their first game. And ORCS plays a lot like Kalanor. There's a lot of the same kind of gameplay. It's just what if the level design was a lot less interesting? And I loaded up Kalanor to play some of that, and that's saying something, because Kalanor's level design isn't very interesting either. But at least it's got the basic Metroidvania pattern going on here. This is a straightforward platformer. They mentioned Castlevania, Ghosts and Goblins. Honestly, my go-to for these kinds of games is Roston. And that's definitely but the thing it has in common with all of these games is it's got that creaky jump arc, that that committed jump, as in you jump, you're not really moving all that much, if at all. Just the jump arc always feels weird and creaky. That was also in Kalanor, and it's got that same dinky range. To it. Your sword's not quite as long as you want it to be. And that was one of the things about Castlevania, Ghouls and Ghosts, even Roston. You had range. This is more on the scale of Adventure of Link, in terms of how far you can thrust your sword, or I guess overhand swing, as the case may be. And indeed, like the title suggests, you fight a whole bunch of orcs. And in order to get variety, you fight orcs with different weapons. Some will have will throw clubs, some will throw hammers, some will throw axes that go in an arc. Some will be flying in the sky. Some are wizards that fire lightning. And then after about 4 or so levels, you fight a boss. Honestly, this is about as rote and routine a platformer as you could find.
If somebody handed you this on an NES cartridge, you wouldn't have batted an eye.
I'm honestly, I would, because it's not really going for that NES aesthetic. It's going for a retro one, but this is what I call generic retro.
Yeah.
Generic 8-bit. The color palettes kind of, it's not really evocative of an actual NES title.
Yeah, maybe 8-bit PC.
Yeah, that's more what I think here. Like,
So a
this is more
cassette tape with
Commodore
this
60.
on there.
Yeah, honestly, this looks more like a Commodore 64 game. This looks most like a Commodore 64 game now that I think about it. Not an NES title. Though it does operate with more buttons than a Commodore 64 joystick has. So whatever that's worth. Like, honestly, there's just not a lot to this game. It's barely competent. Like, not actually awful, but it's very uninteresting. That more uninteresting than Kalanor was. And I suppose the big saving grace here is the price, as it clocks in at a mere $2. This never came to consoles, so there's no worry about paying the console tax. Like being $5, which was what Telenor was. And it's also on sale for like 55 cents. So it's in the cup of coffee zone. So even if you don't even if you hate this thing, it's only setting you back less than the price of a cup of coffee. So who cares? It's that cheap. But it's difficult to be enthusiastic about it unless you're like the developer or one of their family members. Even then, it's like it exists. It's just one of those games that exists. And I think that's about all I got here. And yeah, that'll about do it for not just this review, but this review session. So, coming up on the week ahead. Right. So, on Wednesday, January 29th, we'll be welcoming Anthony Flack of Claymatic Games. So they are a developer out of New Zealand. Not the first one there, but not a place we have all that often. We'll be talking about their upcoming remake of apparently a very vaunted indie title, Platypus Reclayed. I gotta admit, I'm absolutely unfamiliar with this game. Like it's apparently an iconic indie title, but the thing is, this came out 23 years ago, apparently. So this is an indie title out of the year 2000. So I'm not surprised that I've never heard of it. It's something that predates not just the indie explosion of the late 2000s, but even like Cave Story and La Mulana, which are mid 2000s. We're talking something that came out at the turn of the millennium, which is an even smaller indie pool. Anyway, I will, obviously I will be learning more about this title in the upcoming few days. Anyway, we do have a new episode of MSP planned. Guest had to cancel there. So we will be doing appropriate substitution. No idea if Max shows up because we're not having a guest. Sometimes he does that. Anyway, coming up on Friday, January 31st, we will be having Mario of Kawaii Games / World of Long Plays. So this is going to be something a bit different. As in, this is something that I was originally trying to shoot for MSP. But since the people who operate the World of Long Plays and who contribute are mostly in Europe, this had to be shunted over here. So, question for the crew here: who knows what the World of Long Plays is?
I've seen a couple.
I haven't heard of it, but I could hazard a guess.
Go on.
Some kind of group or event in which people do long plays of various games.
Yes. More specifically, if you've looked up a long play on YouTube, they're probably the ones who provided that long play. And it seems like they're dedicated to this word gets thrown around a lot. Okay. Well, here's their mission statement. The long play is a playthrough of a computer or video game created with the intent of completing it as fully as possible, mainly for the purposes of nostalgia, preservation. That's the word I'm having a bit of a contention with. Because I'm like, preservation doesn't exactly, this isn't preserving the game itself. You know what I mean?
I get it, but there is with the modern updating of games and stuff like that. There is still
removed. It's like one step removed from what you really want in preservation, but
right.
Having a recording of something in its entirety is still way better than it being actually lost.
Right.
Right. This is one of those finer points I'm sure is going to come up in the actual interview.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's something a bit different. We'll see how it goes. Because this is our first time approaching something like World of Long Plays. Getting into the mindsets of people who record a video game for the internet and don't comment on it. That's another key factor of a long play. Commentary is verboten. At least that's the way I understand it. Once again, I suppose, there's actually a lot to sift through here in the fine points. So, with that in mind, I shall wish you good gaming.